There we go. That should be much better. I did not realize that after testing the input, it was going to then, I turned it way down. I was going to resort, what it's called, or roll back to the original settings of some disconnected mic I had. Anyway, that should be better. Let's see right now. I know I'm getting a terrible amount of delay on the actual chat versus what's going on. So hopefully you guys can hear me now. Should be working now. There we go. Okay. There we go. So it should be getting some audio in now. Perfect. All right. So I was mostly coming here today to talk about the Form 1 amnesty that was going on with the braces that is now eclipsed or subsided, whatever. And kind of the general attitude towards it as a whole, which I thought was kind of fascinating. Because it was, for a while there, a lot of people were very quick to I don't know if I can actually promote a curse or not, but basically badmouth anybody who was actually registering their braces or whatever, or their pistols with braces attached to them. And I understand where they're coming from, but I will say this, that for a lot of people out there, it's not, I mean, if you're already on a list because you already own SBRs or whatever, then it's kind of a non-issue. Let's see. It is really not wanting to, there we go. Hey, buddy. Thank you, Deslov. Act mandatory carry. Very cool, very cool. Appreciate it. But yeah, and I apologize if it's super, super choppy for you guys. Just rewind a bit and it'll catch up. Yes, sir. Thank you. I have not been on for a while. I've been working as the editor over at AmmoLand for about 3.5 years now, and they have kept me very, very busy. Great site, by the way. And very good at kind of finding stuff before it's news. And then a lot of other YouTube channels will then take that data and then run with it. But, which is whatever. But, yeah, no, it's great stuff. But, anyway, what I was getting at is a lot of guys out there were talking, smack about guys that were going with the Form 1s or whatever, or going with the amnesty of the braces. But in my opinion, if you're already, an owner of NFA items, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm already on a list. And I've heard people say that, I'm just not going to comply. I'm just not going to comply. And, that's a personal decision. I can't tell you whether you should or whether you shouldn't comply. I mean, legally, you probably should. Is it constitutional? No. But like I said, if you've already got toys and or if you're, a public facing figure like myself, the ATF already knows, and they have a pretty good idea of what you have, even if they don't necessarily know precisely what you have. They have a pretty good idea. And like for me, a lot of my guns that I have, NFA stuff or brace stuff, I've used in videos and articles, and there's a lot of very visual, very irrefutable, if circumstantial, evidence that I own it. So for me, I'll be honest, I registered, 10 guns through the Form 1 amnesty. And, the reason that I did it was expressly because I'm cheap and I don't want to pay for the tax stamps. And I had a lot of them to do. And I was initially going to go with the Silencer Shop easy Form 1 stuff, but is actually, I don't know if it's because of the API they use or whatever, but that their system is actually very slow for me. So I ended up actually just going through the eForm site myself and then manually registering all these different, guns or whatever. And I think I did most of them around April. And but what's interesting is that the only ones that I got back so far are one for a Pakistan Ordnance Factory MP5K reverse stretch and a Kalashnikov USA KP104, and which is awesome, by the way. I really like that gun. If you haven't seen my review on the KP104 SBR I did over at AmmoLand, you should definitely give it a look-see. I put like 2,500 rounds to the gun. I've since put another 500, so I'm right at 3,000 rounds. I think I've had 2 malfunctions, and they both were with a one of the crappy KCI mags. When I was loading up to go to the AK Masters match, what I ended up doing was just, taking all the mags I had that I had easy access to, loading them up and saying, let's go. And so I didn't necessarily look at what I had. I just kind of, went with whatever I had. And let me just type this in chat just in case. There is no audio still. I can't tell if there is or not. Based on the fact there's only 2 congruent viewers, I'm guessing there's probably no audio, and I'm talking to myself. Very hard to tell, unfortunately. Yeah, there's almost no way. I don't know what's going on so far. Oh, there's no audio. I have no idea why there's no audio. The Form 1. Hey, there we go. I do have audio. Badass. All right, so anyway, the only issues I had with that gun were ones stemming from the KCI mags. So I'll just put a little note here. Skip to the 11-minute mark. I fixed the audio. And I'm not normally that slow of a typer, but I'm reaching around this stupid Yeti mic, which is enormous. But anyway, and that, those magazines are kind of notorious for having feeding issues. The other gun that I recently picked up, and rather than go track one down, let's see if I can find. I picked up here we go. Recoil has some good photos. I picked up a SKS-M, which is, for those of you not in the know, is the Norinco import-friendly SKS that takes AK mags. Though, unlike this guy from Recoil, I am not so blasphemous to feed it a Magpul mag, rip. But I actually really like the gun. I paid a little bit too much for it because it's in rough shape, but it is functional, and that's all I really cared about. It's one of those guns that I had on my bucket list forever of like, if I ever see one for a decent price, I'm gonna pick it up. And I saw one on the AK Files, and I was like, you know what, screw it, why not? Figured I might as well. It was a very appealing gun to me when 7.6239 was like 12, 15 cents a round. Now that 7.62 is hovering around 40 cents a round, woof. That is not the cheapest option by far. We just got this. Let me see if I can stretch this over to here so I can see a little better. There we go. Hey, what's up, Bornin? Appreciate it, brother. I'm sure you'll see this message from me in about 10 minutes, but thank you very much, sir. And I've been very busy. And in addition to working for AmmoLand, I just had 7 months ago, I had my second child. His name is Arthur, and he is gigantic. My wife keeps joking that we should name him Arthur. Remarkably husky boy. 98th percentile across the board when he was born. Fun fact, the nurses, when they saw him, were taking pictures of him when they were weighing him. And I was like, what? Is he okay? Does he have like 3 feet? Like, what's going on? And they were like, that baby's huge. They're like, wow, he's just like, he's going to be like a bodybuilder. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, just like his old man, yeah, something like that. But no, he's a sweet kid. He's teething right now. So he's trying to see what it takes to get his dad to lose his mind. But yeah, awesome. Can't tell you enough. If you don't have kids and you're on the fence and you're like, I don't have the money. I mean, unless you're destitute, you have enough money, to be completely honest. And you never really have enough money. and especially if you're getting up into your 30s or whatever, like, and your presumably your wife is around the same age. Yeah, it sounds crazy. They call pregnancies after like it's either 36, 37 geriatric pregnancies, but they are higher risk. But go for it when you're younger. Kids is definitely a young man's game. I mean, I'm 38 now, and I feel about 65 years old when they wake me up at 2 a.m. screaming. And you go on autopilot. You're like, yeah, okay, I got you. What's wrong, buddy? And you will amaze yourself with the patience that you never thought you had. But anyway, aside from that SKS, I finally bit the bullet and purchased an SLR 106 CR, which is the 102 clone from Arsenal that apparently has some issues, whatever. I found one at a place out of Missouri, called Black Rifle Company, but not Black Rifle Coffee Company, apparently. And they had them for like $2,000, which is, knowing that I could have bought one like 8 years ago for $600 hurts my soul. But the fact that it was new in the box, and I was like, they haven't made these and they won't make these ever again, presumably. And I like KUSA products, don't get me wrong, but I'm not holding my breath on a 12.6 inch barreled 5.56 AK from them in the near future. So I said, screw it. You know, my money's only becoming less and less valuable every day because, you know, inflation is so absurd. I said, you know, I'll just get it. I'll treat myself, okay, frankly. But, you know, it's whatever. Do I think it's worth $2,000? No. There's no Arsenal made is worth $2,000. It just isn't. It may be worth that in the sense that you can resell it for something like that, but it's definitely not like objectively worth it. Kind of like how, so I've got a Norinco double underfolder that is like, I think they're worth like $3,000 now, right? I would never pay that for that gun. It's a super, super nice gun. It's not a $3,000 gun. Thank you, Show. Just appreciate it, brother. Been a long time coming. I've been meaning to get back into streaming for like a year, and life got a little crazy about, gosh, I want to say about a year ago now. Well, not quite a year. I guess it was 9 months ago, excuse me. I got into a pretty bad car wreck. I was driving, I must have been half a mile from my house, and a guy in the other lane just started veering into my lane right as I was about to take a left turn. And I was slowing down, beginning to cut the wheel or whatever, and he cuts into my lane, and I go, whoa, and I cut back into my, further into my own lane. I think he was looking at his phone or whatever, and he cuts the wheel in the opposite direction, but ends up, cutting the wheel in the same direction I was turning, hits me head on. He was going about 65 miles an hour. I was going about 35, maybe 35 miles an hour. Let's see if I think I have a picture of this. And hopefully I don't end up doxing myself in the process. Let's see. Let's see. I'm searching through. Let's see if I can find this. Oh yeah. Here we go. I'll toss it in here. I don't think I'm going to dox myself. No, I'm not. All right, so let's make sure I have my thing in there. So that's my new badass ride. You're like, oh man, look at that RAV4. That dude fucking slays. It's whatever. But I will give Toyota credit. That thing hit me head the fuck on, and I dislocated both of my thumbs. But that's it. So I popped both of my thumbs back in the socket before before the shock wore off, because I was like, this is gonna hurt like a motherfucker in about 25-30 minutes when the adrenaline wears off. What's remarkable is at the time my wife was 8 months pregnant, and she walked away from the crash with a bruised sternum. That's it. And my 2-year-old was in the back seat. The only thing that the only trouble he had is one of his cars that was in his hand yeeted itself into the fucking ether because we never found it. But we went and bought the exact same model except for like one trim level down. And the one thing that blew my mind was just how expensive cars have gotten. So I got a RAV4 Hybrid Limited now, I think it was, and the damn thing was like $53,000. Like, Jesus Christ. It's a freaking Toyota, man. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like 50 grand was like BMW 6 Series money. Shit, 60 grand was, a bare bones Dodge Viper. One of the old like RT10s or whatever with the crappy soft top or whatever. And that money does not go anywhere near that far anymore, unfortunately. But no, it's been a wild ride. That happened, and then a few months later, my boy was born, and thank God, no issues whatsoever. And just putting my nose to the grindstone since then. Just trying to get stuff done, trying to make some more money. And I don't know. Looking out for more opportunities, because unfortunately with Bidenomics being what they are, I'm losing money every day. So trying to figure out a way to make a little more dough. Probably not as a YouTube streamer, considering I have 5 viewers right now. But it is what it is. It'll get there. I'll figure something out. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I'm waiting on, back to my original point, I'm waiting on about 8, I want to say 8 different Form 1 still. And it's interesting. I mean, I already had 2 SBRs prior. And I'm telling you, it is. And I apologize for the stream quality because, it is not. It is not my Amigo right now. High risk, and you will amaze yourself with at a place. It's one of those things where like I was not concerned with having to have my information out there. I will say there was apparently I have very light fingerprints. I went into one of those places that kind of does its own fingerprinting or whatever, and that uses some kind of interface or whatever that is considered compliant for the ATF or whatever, and for government applications. And it took me like an hour and a half to get usable fingerprints. It was ridiculous. Whereas I'm like 90% sure when I did my Form 1, standard Form 1 for my MPX SBR, I got my prints done in like, I don't know, 10 minutes. The only thing I can think of is that I know that not that long after I did the MPX, I ended up getting some pretty severe chemical burns on my fingers. I was wearing nitrite gloves that were apparently made in China. Not great. When I was using a chemical paint stripper, some of it got into the gloves and just like peeled my fingerprints off. Not the best. Also kind of like for a while I had like baby soft hands. And I remember I was filming some review for Burst Review and I was running an AK. And I remember distinctly, I was grabbing like one of the texturized pistol grips, and I was like, "Ow, ooh!" Like, I felt like such a wuss. I was like, "God damn!" I don't remember this being this rough on my hands before, but it was definitely badass. Other things that I wanted to talk about, since I've got at least 5 of you here now. Woo! Count yourself among the most elite gun fans, Second Amendment bros in the world. Is that, let's see if I can pull it up real quick with my busted ass phone. Perfect. There we go. Was some of the upcoming laws coming out in terms of things to kind of look out for you guys out there. So I know the one in Massachusetts has been especially egregious. On that even the cops in Massachusetts were like, this is a bad idea, because basically it was not only was it permitting, but it was encouraging cops to go door to door, and it was doing like an ex post facto, so after the fact condemnation and rendering previously legal objects as illegal. Certain guns like quote unquote assault weapons, and these a lot of these cops are like, this is really not smart. You're gonna get people killed. And more than that, let's set aside the whole, fact that it's completely unconstitutional. But like, think about for a second the guys out there that are collectors. Let's say you're an older guy, you live in Massachusetts, right? And you're like, I'm not moving. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool masshole, and I'm never leaving. This place is wicked pissy. I love it. And I know a lot of those guys. Are like, I can't live without my chowder. And you're like, I'm not moving. And you got all these nice guns. They're all pre-ban guns. And their status as a pre-ban gun, even a Massachusetts pre-ban gun, they held a lot of value, right? And overnight, somebody can kind of like snap their fingers and just, boom, all of that money is gone. Because there's no earthly way that the government was going to, compensate you for what they're taking. And in the rare occasion that they actually do, they're going to give you market value based off of a non-gray market. Or what they'll do is, well, what is this gun worth? And they'll Google it. And they'll be like, hey, what if it's used? Oh, it's a used gun. Okay, so that used means it's worth half of what the retail was. And they're not going to take inflation into account. So it would not shock me if they're like, oh, that Norinco you bought for $200, it's used. It's $100. Give me, here's $100. Is the sling off that gun actually Chinese? I don't know. It's canvas, so there's a good chance that it is, but I don't even know. And Mike, yes, you know what I'm talking about. That stuff is exhausting. 1000%, brother. Wow, this stream is like like 10 minutes delayed. Okay. So I apologize if I go way forward and then kind of it almost feels like you're watching like a Tarantino film with the whole in medias res, where you're going to start in the thick of it and then jump back. But anyway, but yeah, no, it's interesting to me how they can even consider this to be a good idea. But I mean, I say interesting, but it's not shocking. The powers that be don't care, and realistically, they're not going to be the ones ever to put boots in the ground and actually enforce these laws. And and I'd say that a tremendous amount of, especially places like sanctuary cities and places that kind of allowed the riots to occur during the BLM stuff, they have shown an open disdain for police officers and law enforcement in general. And as such, it would not shock me that this was done not just with indifference to the lives and the safety of police officers, but additionally done kind of as a way to make cops go, you know what, I don't want to do this. This is I don't think they want to get cops killed. Let's pray. But if it was a means to dissuade good officers away from the job and thus get shooed in guys that will follow orders and not follow their conscience, you know what I mean? Like, I know plenty of cops from back in the day that would, use their best judgment, right? So they caught some kid who's 17 with a little bit of pot in his car, right? The kid's not high at the moment. He's got, enough that it's clearly just for him. He's, realistically, he's 17. He's probably going to, hang out with some friends. Maybe they'll watch cartoons and eat too much pizza. And that's like, right? I'm not pro or anti, recreational marijuana use per se. I personally don't do it, and I wouldn't, especially as a dad. And I think people who overuse it, especially like young guys that overuse it, stuff is horrible for you. But yeah, no, it's those kind of cops that would say, you know what, this is a victimless crime. I'm not gonna railroad this dude like that. That I understand, right? But and I agreed, Wes. Versus the guys that the zero policy stuff or zero tolerance policies rather, where they're like, little Johnny drew a gun in school. We're sending that fucker to prison, and he's like 9 years old. And you're like, he's a future white nationalist, and you're like, but little Johnny's not even white, and he doesn't even know what those words mean. Doesn't matter. Drew a gun. Future terrorist confirmed. And you're like, what the fuck? It's like, all right, calm down. And a big chunk of it are all the activist judges out there that either apply the law unevenly or outright flaunt the laws, or at the very least the intent of them. It's like it's kind of like how there's the speeding laws are there not to prevent people from driving fast. They're there to prevent you from killing yourself and other people. At least initially. I don't know that the majority of laws nowadays are made in good faith. I would assume they're probably not. A chunk of them are. I don't think everybody in politics is just straight up corrupt / evil. I mean, there are a bunch of individuals that are just useful idiots, or, they're good people who are just terribly naive. There's a lot of people like that are libertarians. Like, I have a good friend of mine, and I'm not going to name names, but he is absolutely certain that the Hearing Protection Act will pass any day. And he's been absolutely certain of this for years. And I've told him that there is approximately zero chance of it ever passing. And it's not because the law doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. It absolutely does, right? The problem is there is no politician out there that would ever in a million years want to be the guy that legalized silencers, or assassin tools, they would call them. And and as such, especially because it's career suicide. Because if you're a right wing guy or a rhino or conservative, whatever the hell, and you were the guy, you were the deciding vote that got that passed. Your next election, they're like, Jim Grant legalized silencers. Do you want your children to be shot in the head by Hitman Codename 47 from a mile away, and you don't even hear it? No. Like, vote America, vote socialism. And you're like, wait, what? Like, yeah, it's nuts. I mean, it's like, I think I did a stream on this a while ago on the quote unquote, the war on words. So, both sides do it. But the left likes to do it not in good faith. If they can't control the conversation in a logical way or even an emotional way, then they'll simply redefine the words to mean what they want them to mean. And yes, I have seen the price on some of the trucks. I forget if it's the new Tundra or Tacoma that's coming out. That's like an electric one, and it's like $100,000. And I was like, dude, $100,000 should buy you a Batmobile. Like, that shit should be able to go underwater and fly, or at the very least have anti-SAM or anti-ground or air-to-ground missile countermeasures. Like, I want a chaff button on my damn dashboard and like in thermals. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's absolutely nuts. But anyway, it's one of those things where, like, a good example, right? Like, assault weapons is a fabricated term. It's a meaningless term in the sense of like a scientific or a mechanical term, right? It is designed to elicit emotions. You're like, because most people who are normies, they hear weapon and they go, oh no, a weapon, assault weapon. Oh shit, it's gonna hurt people. It's designed to assault people. It's a weapon designed to assault people. Well, why does anyone need that, right? And you can empathize with the incompetent, but you can't really reason with them, unfortunately. You could try, but unless you have total control of the media, total control of the narrative, like the powers that be, it's really hard to beat into someone's brain that they're wrong, or for that matter, if there's someone who's a dyed-in-the-wool believer in something, they can be slapped in the face with an infinite amount of irrefutable evidence that their core beliefs are wrong, and the gut-wrenching feeling of cognitive dissonance will be so soul-crushing for them, they'll never learn. It doesn't matter. I mean, some of the most staunch anti-gun people have been a victim of a violent crime and were themselves unarmed, and thus could not, dissuade, stop, whatever, their attacker. And their takeaway was, well, if he didn't have a gun, he wouldn't have done it. And I'm like, or he would have stabbed you, or crazy talk here. Maybe if you had the means to protect yourself, it would have went down differently. I mean, maybe not, but if you have the means and the mentality, and preferably the training. I mean, you're not even necessarily training. Plenty of defensive gun users out there are from rank amateurs that bought a gun because someone was stalking them, or they felt like they were in danger, or they're a small business owner that kept getting robbed at gunpoint, and they said, you know what, I don't want someone else to be able to decide whether I live or die. Especially with there's been a swath of violent crime recently that the perpetrators just straight up murder the victims